Hey everyone, my name's Thomas, and I'm going to be going over Blood Bowl again, because why not? So we're going to start things off with just my team, make it a little easier overall for everybody. I'm playing Nurgle. My theme is Gentlemen Nurgle People, which not really make a lot of sense, but that's fine. I went with 4 warriors, 1 beast, 1 Pestigore, and filled out with Rotters. For those of you not familiar with Nurgle, you kind of don't start with anything. You're a sort of bashy team, but you don't have normal bashy skills like block or tackle or much of anything, honestly. Mighty blow on your big guy, I guess, but that's kind of it. Basically, you work as more of a super defensive team that can really prevent people from scoring, which is the whole goal. So the Beast of Nurgle has tentacles, which you can kind of read the description there, but basically prevents low strength people from getting away from him, along with foul appearance, disturbing presence, and regeneration, so you can't get rid of him. Mighty blow, if he has to punch, makes him punch really hard with strength 5. He's got a low movement and no agility to balance that out. Nurgle warriors are kind of the same deal. They're just big roadblocks, but unlike Beast of Nurgle, they don't have really stupid, so they can throw more punches, and they're basically your big tanky core. They can serve as your cage, they can just be huge annoyances, but the same deal, they're really defensive and don't do a lot at level 1. Pestigores are kind of your big movers. They've got agility 3, which means they're basically your ball carriers. They've got horns, which makes them capable of blitzing as well, and then they also come with regeneration, makes them pretty good actually for ball carriers because they're really resistant. Rotters are your linemen that are really just throwaway. They're really cheap. They have decay, which if you ever played Undead before, basically means you're going to fall apart. You roll 2 injuries every time you would get injured, so you know, they're not going to last very long. But they're really cheap, and the thing I've really been talking about is Nurgle's Rot, which is the ability to, anytime you kill somebody with strength less than 4, and they don't have decay, or regeneration, or stunty, you are going to get a free Rotter, which can be really helpful at lower levels, and in general is just really good across the board. So, as you can see, strengths are kind of on the high side for the most part for half my team. Pestigores are kind of 4 with horns if you need them to blitz. The rest of these guys are pretty low. And like I said, I've got no block or tackle or anything like that, so I really have to be careful when I throw blocks. Definitely got to be 2 dice blocks pretty much consistently across the board, because otherwise I'm going to fall down. Because Nurgle guys are so expensive as well, I can only get 2 rerolls, which is kind of scary, all things considered. But if I play conservatively, I should be okay. Now this lineup would be really great against a passy team. High agility teams especially would be frustrated by this. I made my team early before anybody else did. A little bit about background about the league as we go back to it here. We're all new. I think this is our first league anybody's played in. The administrator for the league, Kid Gruesome, Mark, he's played Blood Bowl before. I mean, I've played Blood Bowl before, it was a long time ago. But he's played Blood Bowl more recently, I think, than anybody else. It was his idea. Get us all together and do this. I only know some of these people as well, so this should be kind of weird. But we're all new, so there's going to be a lot of weird suboptimal builds. There's going to be a lot of weird suboptimal play. It should be a lot of fun. We'll kind of quick go through the teams, and we'll see why I'm a little nervous about my team. Amazons are up first. This is kind of what I'm looking for. They're a high agility team, but kind of average strength, low armor value though. But the scary part is movement 6. If you've ever played against Amazons before, you kind of know what's up. Lots of dodge all over the place. The super scary part is these blitzers, which have block and dodge at level 1, and he has 3 rerolls because, yeah, I mean, they're expensive, I guess, but he can, all of his people are so cheap that he can still afford 7 cheerleaders, which I don't like. This team bothers me due to the boob joke that isn't very funny, but whatever. But yeah, he's got some passing game, which I should be able to disrupt. Dodge is pretty annoying though with no tackle. And again, having block and dodge on 3 people means caging is going to be really hard. But my primary goal is going to be to beat up this low strength and low armor value team. Lots of movement though. All these guys are faster than all except one of my players, so if he gets throwing, things are going to be scary. So hopefully Disturbing Presence will help me a lot. Disturbing Presence, I didn't really go over that, but it reduces the throw, catch, or intercept rolls of anybody within 3 squares of that individual, so it's really good, not to be underestimated at all. Next team's me, and then third team is Mark, who's playing human. I'm pretty scared of this because humans are pretty solid at level 1. Should have blocked that. Humans are pretty solid at level 1. Mark, in particular, built a pretty scary team. Ogre has a pretty good amount of movement for a big bashy guy. He's got 2 agility, which is pretty unusual for a bashy guy. Plus 5 strength, but he doesn't really have a lot. He's got third teammate, which I don't think Mark will ever use. If he does, I'll be shocked, basically, because yeah, he doesn't have right stuff on anybody, so I don't see him ever developing that. But yeah, he's got thick skull, which means he's going to be hard to hit. He's got mighty blow. Bonehead is kind of the only thing that's going to be going for me. Just a straight 1-in-6 shot of doing nothing, which will be helpful. But I've got really stupid to balance that out, so it kind of goes both ways. But the blitzers all have block and are 3/3/8 with a move value 7, so that's scary. Pass and sure hands already, and linemen are kind of worthless is the one thing, but they're the same stats as my linemen, except with more movement and not decay. I guess not Nurgle's Rock, whatever. I love his team because it's Star Trek. The one thing that's weird is he suddenly switches to Star Wars midway through, but that's okay. But as you can see, he's got 4 blitzer already and an ogre, so he's got a lot of punchy power. Again, I think my biggest thing is going to be to tie up the ogre with a rodder and leave the rest of these. I've scrimmed this a little bit to test out the match, and my best bet is to just hope I can tie them all up in the middle while I run around. I basically have to stop him from scoring at all and hope I can get some touchdowns. Best case scenario is I 2-0 him. Worst case is he just trounces me, but I mean I would take like a 2-1 even. I've won some human matches 1-0 when I'm testing it out. I'm pretty nervous. His rerolls are so cheap too. He's got 3. Yeah, I mean he didn't even need this guy. He could have skipped him. A lot of human players do, and I don't blame him because he doesn't contribute that much. But this is a scary team to face round 1. I mean they only technically have block, but all their stats are pretty okay, and my stats are pretty okay, and I don't have block, so it's a little scary. I'm going to rely a lot on foul appearance and stuff like that to really stymie these guys. Next is the Chaos team. Chaos can be a little scary with all the blitzing stuff, but then I got less scared about this team, and I'll show you why. It looks pretty terrifying at face value. He's got a Minotaur, he's got all 4 Chaos Warriors, which I basically have my stats with more agility and more movement. Minotaur is pretty scary as well with horns and frenzy. Means you can blitz for 6 and smash you apart. Wild Animal is kind of bad, but only if he isn't blitzing, which with horns you're really encouraged to blitz anyway. It's like the Bloodthirster problem of he's basically going to go in there anyway. Armor value 8 means he's okay, so I can probably punch him a little bit, but realistically I may just have to send somebody to tie him up. It's not going to be pretty one way or the other. Chaos Warriors, same deal. They're basically like my guys without the protective abilities of more agility, more movement. The Beastmen all have horns, so he does have somebody that can blitz with a 4 no matter what, which is pretty nice with movement 6. So basically he's a faster, less defensive version of me, so I actually should be okay against this in general. But what really makes me pissed is this number, 0 rerolls. I'm pretty sure Chaos costs 70 just like mine do, so they're really expensive. It's 140. He's not going to afford to reroll for a long time. And he went with an apothecary and 2 assistant coaches for some reason. According to Mark, he's played the game before too, so I have no idea why this isn't at least 1 reroll. This is just crazy. I mean, this guy is reckless. Super reckless. I mean, you can play super conservative, but the dice are going to turn on you. I mean, the dice are built to make you fail, which is kind of what I like about this game a lot, is that rolling the dice is something you are penalized for, so you have to be really careful. You can't just play super reckless. I mean, you can, but you're going to lose. Other teams. Chris, this is one of the people I know. He is playing Dark Elves with a Legend of the Five Rings reference. It's a card game. For those who are not familiar with it, he was going to play Amazons for a long time, and then one of the early teams took Amazons, and I talked him into taking Dark Elves, because Dark Elves are kind of fun. I actually almost took Dark Elves myself, but I played a lot of Nurgle, and I like Nurgle, and I made my team before I played Dark Elves a little more. That's one of those things where I didn't know what I was doing, really. So Dark Elves are, elf teams in general, for those who don't play the game very often, are really passy. For the most part, they run the ball a lot. Dark Elves just kind of run the ball. They've got a pretty good amount of movement. I'd say above average movement on all their guys. 4 across the board, which is pretty standard for elves. And pretty good armor value, actually, for a running team. Most of their guys have 8. Their runners have 7. The runners also have dump off, though. So if your runners do get punched, they can toss it to somebody else. So if you're running any kind of loose cage at all, which you should be with this team, you're going to toss it away without having a big deal, which is going to be good. So we get quick pass, which is awesome. He's got 2 of them, so he's got a lot of flexibility. He can run them as pairs, and he'll go around a lot. Linemen are just kind of generic, but they have 3 strength and 8 armor value and 4 agility, so they can do a lot. They can pick up the ball pretty well. They can pass or catch the ball pretty well, and they're relatively tough for an elf team, so that's pretty impressive. Their blitzers start with block as well, which makes them really good. He doesn't have 4, which is good for me, but he couldn't afford a lot if he did, so I'm not complaining too much, but it's a little scary. The super fun part of Dark Elves, though, is the assassin. They have shadowing, which is a really great skill. You just follow people the whole way, so if they want to get out of your tackle zone and they fail a shadowing roll, you're just going to be on top of them. So if you don't get a tackle off of them, you're right next to them for that start. It's really, really good against dodgy teams. It's really good against anyone in general, especially with low movement teams like me. So I'm kind of scared of him, except 3-7, not super likely to block me, but he's still there. He still makes you roll the dice, so it's a really good ability. And then he has stab. Stab is awesome. I know a lot of people don't like stab because you can't get star player points for it, but stab lets you just have an armor value roll instantly without having to worry about number of dice block. Doesn't worry about anybody. So if it's the last action, you can't throw block anyway, and you're using them to mark somebody who's important, you have a chance of just killing them or injuring them or knocking them down. It's pretty impressive. It's really flexible. Yeah, you don't get SCPs for casualties, but rolling a casualty isn't that likely anyway. So I think it's fantastic. He's balanced out again by 7 and a pretty low movement allowance, but he's still really good, and he can develop in some pretty crazy ways. So definitely kind of a team to watch out for. Chris is also, like me, he hasn't played BBLoBB too much before, but he's kind of a power gamer. Really does strategy. I think he's recording his games too. If I figure out where his channel is, I'll throw a link in the description somewhere, and you can check it out there. Moving on to the other teams. Go a little bit faster maybe, because I know one more player. Laughterlife is the undead team. Undead can kind of mess me up a lot. They're like a more punchy version of my team with a lot more movement availability, but even then, zombies have regeneration, which is kind of stupid. I think all their guys have regeneration, actually, except for the ghouls. But yeah, almost all their guys have regeneration, which means they can be tough to punch. Low agility on a lot of their players, though, which is kind of the same boat I'm in. Zombies, low strength, though. They're pretty much just your generic linemen with low agility, low movement. So my guys are actually better in a lot of ways because they have the same movement, zero value, but they don't have regeneration. They got Nurgle's Rot instead, but they have higher agility, so that makes them a little more flexible. Whites are kind of like your blockers because they have block, but they can also be good ball runners because they have the highest agility in your team and a really good movement allowance. They're kind of like Prestigers, except they have block instead of horns, which is kind of a better deal in my book, but I guess. Skeletons are weird in a lot of ways. They have a thick skull, which means they can stand up a lot, and regeneration, so again, they can stand up to a lot, but they've got low strength, or average strength, I guess, but low movement, low agility, low armor value, so they're basically going to get hit a lot. They're, like your zombies, really throw away, so they're kind of a weird team. They just have a higher movement, so I don't know. You're basically trading movement for armor value. With thick skull, you kind of balance out, so I don't know why you would go for zombies over skeletons, but and I guess it's a balance. Against the bashy team, I guess having the innate higher armor value isn't bad either. Mummies are their scary guys, but they've really slow movement speed. But strength 5, not to be played around with. Armor value 9 and mighty blow. These guys can hurt a lot, and especially since I've got a lot of 4s and a lot of 3s, I gotta basically stay away from them and hope I can just outmaneuver them. Ghouls are kind of your traditional ball carriers, I would assume. They've got high agility, high movement allowance, and dodge, so they can get out of some sticky situations. I'm going to try to mark these guys with the beast as much as possible. But yeah, this team, 3 rerolls as well, so this team's a little scary. They've got a lot of flexibility. They're basically like my team, which is the scary part in a lot of ways. What else we got here? We have a necromantic team, which I always mix up with the undead team, but they're very different. They are more like the Norse than anything else. They've got regeneration and a lot of other guys, just like the undead team. The, I guess, big difference is not too much. I mean, zombies are, I think, identical. Yeah, 4, 3, 2, 8. So they're the same. These are just their generic alignment. Whites are like ghouls, or not like ghouls. They're basically the same as your ball carriers. 3, 3, 8 block, movement on 6. Werewolves are where they kind of get scary. They have a big guy, which I'll get to, but werewolves are scary with claw and frenzy, which means they can really mess you up, basically. And movement like that. So these guys are like your blitzers, your terrorizers from the back. Ghoul, more realistically, your ball carrier with movement on 7 and dodge. Flesh golems are basically just roadblocks. They have no movement, kind of strength for a big guy and 9 arm value, and stand firm and thick skull. They're just there to get in the way and punch people. 2 rerolls, but again, this team is a lot like me with a little more level 1 offense. So basically I trade this kind of stuff for a lot of defensive power, which might be okay against the bash team, but it's not as effective as it would be against an agility team. So this league being really bashy, as you can see, is going to be kind of a problem for me. Dwarf is the other team here. Dwarfs are really great in this kind of league because blockers, for the most part. They've got tackle and block, which is pretty good, so dodge won't mean a lot, so the ball runner's going to be really interesting. And he's got a lot of them. He's got so many blockers. It's terrifying. He's got some blitzers as well, who are basically like more agility blockers. So, I mean, they're basically the same deal. They're kind of the people that would blitz with. They kind of get in the way. They're still really slow. Runners are the only ones with any decent movement allowance. They have sure hands and thick skull. So stopping these guys is going to be hard because, again, my best ball runners have these stats, basically. So catching them is going to be tricky. Again, you got to kind of get a beast on them and hope for the best. He only took 1 Troll Slayer, which surprises me, because he could have easily dropped a runner and dropped like an assistant coach, because these just help on certain kick offense. He could have dropped one of these to add another Troll Slayer, which I think is much better. Apothecary makes a lot of sense versus this league, and I totally get it. If you're making it later, I would take that as well. But yeah, 2 rerolls is good, but yeah, 1 Troll Slayer is nuts because Dwarf team is low strength across the board. They get by on having block and tackle, which helps a lot, but Dauntless, Frenzy, Thick Skull, Block. I mean, these are designed to let you attack from out of nowhere and have a good chance of taking down something that's bigger than you to help free up your other things. So this would help him against my beast, for example, or anyone else that's tying up his lower strength guys and just bashing them into the ground. Frenzy helps them push them back farther. I mean, there's a lot that's really good about these guys. I mean, yeah, 2 agility, but 5 movements, they're one of the fastest people on your team. Our value it's still good. So I don't know, I think that's a mistake, but what can you do? Lizardmen, this team didn't have rerolls for a while, so while I was scared of them, I'm less scared of them now. Lizardmen are scary because they're all ridiculously fast. 8 is crazy, and 6 is no slouch either. Like, their big guy has 6. That's ridiculous. It makes sense. This is like Bonehead is his balancing act, but for that he gets Thick Skull, Prehensile Tail, and Mighty Blow, so he can tie up people a lot. He's pretty good. The Crux Guard is pretty good. Really expensive, just like the Beast. He's like the Beast, and then he can tie up my people. Both big removal allowance, because that's great. Saurus is also kind of the same deal as my guys. One movement allowance is the other difference, and I've got the defensive abilities. So these guys are just good punchers. They look scary. Now they balance it out with Skinks, who strength 2, armor value 7, and stunty. So yeah, these guys can get around you and totally get away. But hopefully I can tentacles up some of these guys. And basically I'm going to spend a lot of the game just trying to ignore these guys and punching these guys, because these are their ball carriers. Obviously you're going to grab them, they're going to grab the ball and run with it, because movement value 8, once they get away from me, I can't do anything. So I'm a little scared of these guys. They're just kind of terrifying. Honestly, if it was me, I would have dropped the Kroxigor for more rerolls, essentially. More rerolls than probably a Saurus or 2 over the Skinks. I think that's a better use of team cost in general. Kroxigor is good, for sure, but Saurus is you want to level up as fast as possible, so whatever. By the way, I was more worried about this team before I saw that he had 0 rerolls. He's since remade as 2 rerolls, but not a very experienced coach like most of us, but he seems less experienced than others. And last team is Andrew, who we had to beg and plead to get into the league to begin with. He kind of has the same deal going on as some of the people. He didn't have rerolls for a while, then we talked him into remaking. Korn is a pretty fun team. Everybody's got horns or frenzy. So a lot of them have both. Even the Bloodthirster is a hilarious guy. A lot of people don't like Korn because it's not in the official game, but whatever, they're great. Juggernaut, Claw, Horns, Frenzy. This guy is awesome. Yeah, he's got Wild Animal, so just blitz with him. He's got Regeneration too. You can't. This guy's so good. I mean, yeah, there's times where he's not going to do anything, but whatever. He's so good. Same thing. Horns, Juggernaut, Frenzy. I mean, these basically, you can't be anywhere near the crowd around this team because they'll just kick you out, which is really a powerful thing. The ability to automatically have your opponent not where you are is pretty crazy. And I love his team name, Cornballs. So good. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little scared about these guys too because they've got pretty good stats for the most part. Lots of 3s, yeah, but they got Horns and Bloodthirsters. I'm a little scared just because of Frenzy. That said, Andrew's not very experienced, so hopefully it'll work out for me. Okay, I don't play him until later in the league, which we'll actually get to now, the calendar. So week 1, I'm up again, which we'll focus on now. It's not this is day 1, but it's going to be week 1. We'll just focus on these matches for now. Start things off as me versus Mark, so me versus humans. I talked a little bit, I'm a little scared. Amazon's verse is Dark Elves is kind of hilarious because it's our 2 agility teams basically against each other. This should go well for Chris because Amazons have no armor, so he'll get stabbed all over the place. So this should be a good game for Chris. I think Chris is going to be a better player than him anyway. Laughing Dead verse is Funkin' Donuts, which I've already forgotten who they are. I think that is... God, I'm terrible. Yeah, okay. So, no, I already forgot. Lizardman team. Okay, Lizardman team. Lizardman team versus Undead. Could go either way, honestly. Undead have a lot of punch power, but they're really slow. These guys are really fast, so we'll see. It depends on how well you can do against the Skinks early on. It might be like a 2-1 game. I'd be surprised if they don't score at least something. Next team, Dwarfs versus is the Necromantic team. I mixed the Necromantic and Undead team, I think I mentioned. Yeah, okay. Blocking Dead is the Necromantic team. Cool. This I don't expect to go well for this team. Way more block here. Way more stuff to just mess up the ball carriers with tackle. Yeah, I'm expecting this to go Dwarfs. And then the Chaos teams versus each other. Oh god. This is going to be weird because there's either going to be a ton of injuries or it's going to just be a really good game. I'm expecting a ton of injuries though. Andrew better be serving people all the time, and then Chaos wants to punch too. And against 3 strength people, he's going to have some punching ability. So we'll see. it should be an interesting game one way or the other. Low score, for sure. This whole league is going to be super low scoring except for these two teams, which are against each other. And even then, Chris is super aggressive and will just stab you all day instead of running the ball, because why not? The best cage is the one where you have more players than they do. So that's week 1. We'll go for week 2 some more later in the league, probably next week. My goal is to record my games. We'll see how well my computer does with that. I'll at least record a replay, worst case scenario, or at least go over things. I'm going to go over how the games went too when I recap the next matches, but hopefully this is interesting. I'll talk to you guys later.